Welcome to Finding You Now. I'm your host, Amanda Ashworth, and on today's show, we have Charli Wall. Charli is not only one of my former coaches, but she's a woman who seems to have led many lives, and her strength seems to be building amazing communities of women. So, welcome, Charli.
Thank you, Amanda.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So myself and Charlie have been having a few technical issues prior to this starting, so we've finally got there. So Charlie, do you want to tell the listeners a bit about yourself?
Where do I start, Amanda?
I don't know. You've got a lot to say.
I'm Charli Wall. I'm 51. I have one son who's 23 and a dancing carpenter TikTok sensation. I have worn many professional hats. So I'm currently a life coach that specializes in female mental and physical health. I'm a body worker. My background is as personal trainer and creator of a really wonderful bootcamp community in Cambridge, which is how I met you. And prior to that, I was an addiction specialist nurse. I set up the service at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge in my early 30s. And I have suffered huge trauma in my life, and that has propelled me on this learning journey, certainly for the last 6 years, but I was a seeker before that anyway, which is why I, became an addiction specialist, which is why I became a personal trainer and studied nutrition and health. In the last 6 years, I have really learnt more deeply just how resilient we all are and how we have more to us than we know. So I've currently built an online business, which I did from 2017 until now, where, as you say, I have a wonderful female free Facebook group community and a circle community, and I run retreats, and I love the work that I do. I feel very blessed.
And what's the name of your free Facebook community?
It's called the Freedom Group.
Okay, brilliant. So I was looking today actually of how long I'd known you for, and I worked out that I first came to your boot camp 9 years ago. And I was thinking about the reasons that triggered me to come to your boot camp. And very, very similar to the reasons that some of my clients come to me now. That I think my son, my eldest, was about 5, so he was in school. I wasn't really feeling very fulfilled in the work that I was doing. And I just really lost myself and let go of myself. And so, kind of back then, it was more from a superficial angle when I first got into fitness. And that was the first trigger to start taking care of myself.
Mm.
What made you go into being a bootcamp trainer?
So, sorry, my dog just barked really loudly and made me jump. I was an addiction specialist, and I got divorced. Basically, I got divorced, and I was looking after my young son mainly on my own, and I started going to the gym and changed my life by becoming a personal trainer, and basically having been in the so sorry about my dog.
Don't worry, I've got 2 of them, and sometime in this, they're going to do it.
Hang on, let me just get my bearings. So I had been working for the NHS from the age of, as a student nurse from the age of 22, and then as a qualified nurse and a specialist nurse right up until the age of 32. So I'd always been in an institution. So when I quit that job to become a personal trainer, to train to be a personal trainer and a massage therapist, I had no clue about running a business at all. And so I was kind of starting from the bottom up, trying to teach myself. And what happened was, and there's so much to this story, so I'll try and keep it brief so this doesn't sound like a monologue. I was busy trying to earn money, to make enough money so I could pay the mortgage and feed my son. I was also looking after my disabled father. I wasn't getting any money or any maintenance for my son from my ex-husband. So I was kind of, trying my best to get money. And one of those jobs I was doing was working for David Lloyd. And I got the sack.
Did
And
you think now that it was maybe the universe guiding you?
yeah, so what happened was I went into chronic panic and fear. But from that place, interestingly, I got the idea, it came through me I was thinking, right, how can I earn money? Or there must be other women out there like me who don't have any childcare. So I'll take everything I know and love to a park and see if I can invite women. And so thus Cambridge Boot Camps was born with my little son with me and other women with their children and music and freedom and nature, and it just exploded. Like it went, because there's no boot camps at that time.
And it turned
Certain
into something really amazing.
Yeah, I had boot camps. Like I had I think I had at one point maybe 5 in Cambridge, 2 in Newmarket, 1 in Camborne. um and then it was so good that I was able to sell that after my dad died in 2017. So that I built that from the dirt up, from like, having nothing to having something extraordinary. But it wasn't about what like what I was earning or anything like that. It was about the community that was created. And those women still today, I mean, I sold that in 2017. They still are together. They still go to a different boot camp. And I think that for me was incredible, because I'm not there anymore. So it wasn't even really about me. I was just the sort of
Yeah,
vehicle.
it lives on.
It lives on, or the community lives on. The business
Yeah,
doesn't. Um, the business that I sold has now been sold on, and blah blah. Things change as
yeah.
they do. But I'm very, very proud of that, and it supported me and my son and my father. So yeah, it definitely came through me. The universe. I mean, not only did I get fired from David Lloyd, I also got fired from Sweaty Betty. But don't tell anyone.
So what led you to sell the boot camp is obviously you had a lot of trauma that happened. Was it 2016,
Yes.
2015?
It was 2016, and my father, I'd looked after him. He and my brother had been in a motorbike accident in 1993. My brother had been killed. My father was severely disabled from that point. I looked after him for the rest of his life, which was traumatic in itself. And
So for Charlie's dog's in the background. Charlie's actually recently got a new puppy. So anyone that has little dogs knows that, especially if you have two, they kind of egg each other on.
um, so when he died, I wasn't expecting him to die, even though I'd been expecting him to die for 20 years at that point. So it's a bit of a weird paradox. But it was very, very traumatic when he died. And then he was in hospital for 5 weeks, then he died. And then I ended up in hospital in the same emergency bed, having this emergency operation on my bowels. My bowels are twisted. And it was like, I kind of fell to my knees at that point. I was thinking, how much more can one person take? So I was already really struggling from the death of my father. My son was struggling. He was 16 at the time. There was things going on with him. And so there was one moment where something happened with my son, and I literally fell to my knees and I was like, I need help. I need help. And I was like, the idea then came to sell the house, sell the business. Each
That's
decision I've
brave.
made.
Yeah, very brave and very bold.
I tend to follow those nudges even when they're made when I feel like I'm at my darkest point, because
Mm.
what else have I got to lose? I literally felt like I had nothing left to lose, because also my son then went off to Corfu to be with his father, and he'd never lived with his father. So it was like I'd lost my role as carer for my dad, my role as mother to my son. And I was just completely bereft, I would say,
Mm.
in all honesty. So that was why I made the decision to sell. And I thought I'll go and train to be a yoga teacher in India, which is what happened. I went there for 5 weeks, and then I went to Corfu to see my son for a couple of weeks, and I went to Crete for 3 weeks, and then I went to Spain to live off the land, and I did that for a week, like proper, rewilding. And when I came back, I landed in Norfolk again. That was divine intervention. And from that point, I just started slowly to rebuild my life and try and put the pieces back together of my own self.
Yeah.
And then I started this new business, and my course. Again, divine intervention is how I came across the three principles and did that life coaching course. That was literally divine intervention. So everything that's happened to me from that point, I see as a gift, even though I might not have seen it like that at the time. And I have learned over the last 6 years since his death, because I'm no longer traumatized a lot, in terms of caring for him.
Mm.
I've just unraveled everything and grown and evolved. And
Yeah.
it's just been a wonderful journey, heartbreaking and wonderful at the same time.
So, one of the things that Charlie really taught me was to listen to those nuggets of wisdom. And so far, it hasn't been wrong. And the amount that I feel that the universe guides you and it's always got your back, but it's always kind of almost nudging you in the direction. Sometimes you might be trying to go in one direction, and actually, sometimes there'll just be a sign and
Mm.
it will take you off into another path. And then it's like, okay, that was the lesson I was meant to learn. That was the growth that I needed to do. So, John, to talk to me a bit about the three principles.
Well, I'll do my best to articulate something that's formless. The three principles were something that a man named Sidney Banks, he had an enlightenment experience, a bit like Eckhart Tolle, only the way that Sidney Banks articulated these was to put them under the label of the three principles. And of course, once you put something in the world of form, it becomes a concept to people. And what he's pointing to is a spiritual truth that we think, that we have the gift of thought, the principle of thought, that we have the principle of consciousness, which is our awareness, and the principle of mind, which is divine intelligence. So, and that we have these gifts at all times. And if you understand that, all thought created from the potential of the principle of thought means that anything can come into your mind, but it's all neutral.
Yeah.
And if you kind of don't know that, you take your thinking really seriously. Most people think there's something wrong with them. Once you see the truth of that, you can see that I'm free to have any experience in my life, regardless of the circumstances, because there's nothing outside of me that's going to be responsible for my experience. It's all from the inside out.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think so many people don't realize that everything starts with a thought and that most of your thoughts aren't true.
Yeah,
And depending on how you listen to that internal narrative, sometimes really dictates the thoughts that come into your mind.
that's right. Yes, there's a subconscious programming, and you have a brain, and your brain likes to be right, and a brain likes to be repetitive and create habits, and that includes habits of thoughts. If you pay attention and believe a thought, i.e., I'm not good enough, that thought will come in like a loop, like an earworm, and plague you. And because your brain has a confirmation bias, your theory of yourself gets to be true. But that theory was usually created in the formative years between 0 and 7.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the subconscious thinking, and experiences and internalization often of our caregivers and what's going on with them. So it's really, really fascinating. It all comes from thought, but mostly our theories about ourselves have been created when we were much younger and still continue to play out unconsciously in the background today.
Yeah, and they're the things that kind of contribute to the triggers sometimes.
They are, but most of those I would say are unconscious. So we can get triggered by a person in the here and now, but we're responding from our past
Yeah.
very often.
So I actually found that I recently celebrated my 40th birthday, and this happens every year. I think I like my birthday on the run up to my birthday, but then something in my unconscious brain triggers, and almost I end up acting like an irrational toddler on my birthday. And so there's something over time I'm going to have to change because I feel sorry for everyone that surrounds me, but I know it's nothing to do with what I'm experiencing then, but it's something that triggers me.
Mm. Well, there'll be something, some pattern, something in your. It's like a scratch in a record. You remember having those vinyl records?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, are you? I can't.
I can just remember. No, I can. My first album was a vinyl, so
So if you remember with the vinyl, they might get a scratch on them. And so it's like in
yeah,
our programming, there's like a scratch and you keep going around, there's a scratch, and you keep going around, there's a scratch. And you have to kind of very kindly and tenderly and with finesse explore what that, what is that ridge, what is the programming underneath all of that that's been there for potentially 35 years in your case,
yeah,
because to make the unconscious conscious, you have to be willing to go there. And some people just don't want to, and that's okay. Like, there's no judgment. But when you have patterns like that one, for example, or experiences like that one, you can guarantee that it's coming from a hidden, repressed.
oh, I think I know where it's coming from, and as I say, it's that kind of learning to deal with it. So, what would you say the differences are between therapy and life coaching?
I think so. I'm qualified to do both, and I've had both. And what I see about that is that therapy tends to kind of focus much more on the past.
Yeah,
And life coaching, because of my life experience up till this point, I can bring in a lot of modalities to get where I want to with someone's psyche. But where I'm going is I'm focusing on the present and the future for that person. So I'm helping them to look at where those patterns are, if you like, those scratches are, and to understand, to be able to regulate their own nervous system, to be able to move forwards. And I think therapy, in my experience, was always taking me back in the past. And I didn't realize at the time that I was just being re-traumatized because, of course, I'm
yeah,
bringing the same memory into the present moment and experiencing it again. And I don't want to re-traumatize people, but I think there's a place for all of it. But if you want to move forwards, and problem solve, from that place of I'm enough, I'm okay, I've got everything I need, which most people aren't there yet, but that's where I always wanted to go. Like, I had a vision, I could feel that I was meant to be doing something else and not keep repeating the same patterns and loops unconsciously. I just think life coaching, in my experience, is just more forward thinking and, more
mm,
present and forward thinking. And I don't really think it matters what kind of frame you put around it. If you're helping someone, and I can bring in an eclectic approach, of course, but just being heard, I think, for people is often just enough to get them to kind of
yeah.
move over a stumbling block, because so many people aren't heard.
No, that's something that I experienced. And actually, recently, I've been having therapy and life coaching. So it's been interesting to see kind of the comparison. And I've definitely there's completely a place for therapy, but I've definitely decided in my instance that coaching benefits my life so much more. And I think it's been helpful to do therapy to actually realize how many things in the past I'm at peace with. Where But I think I was almost looking for, books like I'm trying to remember the name of the book, and it talks about kind of trapped trauma. So I think sometimes when you're going through a self-development past, like kind of period, you kind of sometimes look at stuff and think, oh, actually, do I have past trauma in me that's trapped? Is it, what if
Are you
I'm
talking
not
about
addressing it?
the body
Pardon?
keeps the score? Is it the body keeps the score, or is it?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
body that keeps score, yeah. And so that's that was one of the triggers to kind of get me to explore it. And I'm glad I did, but now I can see like where they do have a time and a place. So with the women you work with, what tends to be the common limiting beliefs you come across
I'm not good enough.
with?
I'm not good enough. I can be rejected. I'm not lovable. I'm stupid. I'm fat. I'm too old. They're usually the basis, or I can be hurt.
Yeah. And what I tend to find is many people aren't even aware that they have limiting beliefs. And so they tell themselves these stories that just aren't true.
Yes. So I'll give you an example of this. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I did a circle group call this morning. My circle is the sort of monthly membership, and one of the ladies was saying, I've got this job and I'm struggling. I feel anxious. They're watching me. I don't think they like me. I'm asking questions and I'm being told you should know this by now. And when I went into it with her, and I have the privilege of knowing her, I've known her for a couple of years. She's had 6 different jobs, and every time she's had a job, the same thing has happened. Exactly the same thing. And so what you're dealing with, and I've seen this in friends where again they've had different jobs and they're being bullied and the same thing keeps happening, and they think, oh, I'll get another job, or I'll get another house, or I'll move, right? So we're
Yeah.
looking at the external rather than, oh, the common denominator here is me, and I'm having the same experience in every single job I go for. So what's underneath that? How are you creating that experience in every single job? Well, it's because I don't feel good enough, and I think I can be abandoned and rejected, and I feel like I'm getting life wrong, and nobody likes me because I feel like, I'm being abandoned. So these things play out in our lives, but it looks like it's coming from current circumstances, but it's the unconscious programming running in the background. Most people don't know that that's happening. It looks like Joe Bloggs down the street can hurt me, or if I get a different partner, I'm going to be better. Or if I get a different house or car, I'm going to be better. None of those things are true. So if you're able to just hold again those beliefs, make them conscious and see, right, let's get curious about this. Where did that start? Where did it come from? And let's kind of gently help you to melt that away, because it's not true. There's no
Yeah.
way you can't be good enough. Like trees
Yeah.
are all completely individual and beautiful, and each flower is individual and beautiful, and they could not be not good enough because they're all perfect in their own unique way. That's nature's way. We are all a part of nature. And women in particular, we've been conditioned by patriarchy to be the good little girl. So we're all conditioned to be, small and meek and keep your legs crossed and don't get angry. And, it's so complex, but it's so prevalent, unfortunately.
Definitely. And so one of the things that I find is women really struggle to use their voice. So
Mm.
to be able to, because we're taught to be people pleasers from such a young age, and we're to suppress how we feel in order to please others. And obviously that manifests into something where we end up potentially not even liking ourselves and not even recognizing ourselves, and very much having an empty cup because we're giving all of ourselves to others. And the
Yeah.
amount of women that I speak to that feel that self-care is selfish, and just going, no. I know that my partner doesn't ask if he can go for a shower. He just goes for a shower. There is this thing of just going, how would you suggest that women start to find their voice or explore finding their voice?
Feel into their no. Where does that no sit in your body? How do you disrespect your own knowing? There'll always be a part of you that knows, and you'll always hear your no, no. And by people pleasing and saying yes to others, we're saying no to ourselves. And the way you start to get a feel for that is, if I say yes and I mean no, I feel resentful, I feel angry, I might do some angry washing up, or I might, take it out on the kids or my partner or the dog.
Mm.
Because it's always coming from the fact that I betrayed my knowing and I betrayed my no. So just start practicing no and be okay with that and not have to justify it. Because women speaking their truth is one of the biggest factors that causes dis-ease, because it causes stress into the system, and then that has a knock-on effect on the whole body.
Yeah.
Women's no is their most powerful weapon. And I'll tell you something else about this. If you're still having cycles, which I don't have anymore, I'm in the third age, but women have been taught, again by conditioning, that when they're premenstrual, they're ratty and irritable and, she's got PMT.
Mhm.
No, that is your no. But because you don't know
Yeah.
how to express it, it comes out in these kind of angry spits. And then we go and internalize that and feel bad and guilty and shame. So there's this sort of cycle. But if you say no and mean no and stand by it and hold yourself, amazing things are going to happen, let me tell you.
I think life-changing things will happen. I think it needs to be done in a way, because I was speaking to a friend recently, and she'd had an outburst, and her husband was just shocked, and instantly he put it down to hormones, and it wasn't. It was just that she'd suppressed herself for so long. It just came out in maybe an unhealthy way, and for him to accept it, it maybe needed to be a bit more gradual. I think he was quite taken aback by it, but good for her. And one of the things I don't think enough women are in tune with is their menstrual cycle. So I know exactly where I'm at in my menstrual cycle every month. I know there's a couple of days where I potentially don't want to see each other, where negative thoughts are going to kind of really pop up. But because I know where I am, I know that that's not true. And then I slow it down. And then afterwards, I have this burst of energy.
Mm. Well, that's important, because as a woman, you are a cyclical being, and we have like cycles through the day, which are different from a man's cycle through the day. And we have monthly cycles and seasonal cycles. And, women and rest is also a big topic, because they don't feel able to take rest. So they're not trusting their body, they're not trusting their no. And they'll keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, and then wonder why they get migraines, or, have an outburst, or start to get skin issues, or whatever is going on for the human, because the body's always talking to you. A woman's body is extraordinarily sensitive. And if you can tune into that and be in the body, most people are in the head, right? They're disconnected from the body. They're disconnected from nature. They're on their phone the whole time. And that in itself activates the fight and flight response, because it's narrowing your gaze, which puts your system into a perceived threat. So the disconnection from their own cyclical being is so important and huge for today's population of women. And if nothing else, from the takeaway from this, if nothing else, and you're a woman listening to this, tune into your cycle, get one of those apps, honor your rest, take note of when you're more energized and when you feel like you need rest. And if you can take pockets of that, because I know it's tough with children, but if you can take pockets of rest, do it. Take a bath, read a book, get off your phone, go for a walk. That connection to your body is, again, life-changing and very magical.
I think one of the things I learned a lot when we were working together was the feminine and masculine energy. And I am very
My
much
new
doing,
favorite topic.
and I'm very much doing, doing, doing. And last year, I moved to the UAE 11 months ago, and I was doing, and then I think I stopped. And I don't think I ever stopped to kind of think about what I what had just occurred, and taking a break. And so then what happened is probably about November time. I started to notice that my nervous system was activated, and it's the first time that I've been aware of it, and I chose to ignore it. And so, kind of come Christmas, that manifested itself into illness,
Mm.
which then I had the worst PMT ever in my life. Where firstly, I thought I was crazy. Secondly, I thought I must be perimenopausal. But then actually slowing down and really listening to my body, it was life changing, because now I know exactly when my body's trying to tell me to sleep more and to rest. And I think it very much aligned what you were saying. We're not very in tune with our bodies.
No, we're not. And of course, I think there's an epidemic of women struggling with menstrual issues, with anxiety issues, with depression issues. Um, and if you can just come back to the body, which has a lot of wisdom in it, it's got innate wisdom, and learn the signals of your own body, even if you just start there, and have the courage to not keep, bring yourself back from your head to your body. There is wisdom there, and the more you can get a sense of that, the more ease you will get anyway in both, and the more clarity and space you'll have, because we're so busy. If you think about the energetics, the feminine, and I'm talking about, the masculine and feminine energies are within any human, so male or female. But the feminine, if she doesn't trust herself, the feminine energy fills her space with books, with podcasts, with magazines, with courses, with the next thing, clothes, food, alcohol, whatever it is, because it's never enough, right? There's that thing, it's never going to be enough. I'll never know enough. I'll never be good enough. And if she just trusted, or you just trusted your own inner command, which is the masculine for action, the unimaginable happens. But if we're insecure, we want things to stay in the known. We want things to be we want to be in control of everything. So we keep it in the known, and we keep it, familiar, because then
Yeah.
I get to be safe. But the unimaginable is possible and also safe. It's just that if we don't know that, we're going to just keep things the same, including moaning about the same
Yeah.
things over and over again.
Do you think it's possible then to get growth without going through a period where it is a bit scary, it is a bit uncertain, it is a bit uncomfortable?
I don't think it happens unless that's part of it, in my experience, because you have to confront and take responsibility for your own self.
Yeah.
It's like it is like that metaphor of the sort of caterpillar turning into a butterfly. If you were to open the cocoon before it was ready to emerge, it would be a gooey mess. I was a fucking gooey mess, sorry for swearing, literally a gooey
Right.
mess.
Yeah.
And then I, came out of it, but I had to be able to and willing to, again, gently and tenderly, with love for myself, explore those parts and realize, oh, I was never a victim of circumstance. I just thought I was, because I
Yeah.
felt powerless. I didn't realize how powerful I am. And I think that scares a lot of people. Change
But I
scares
think
a lot of people.
But I also think we're not taught to sit within a feeling. So both of my daughters, whenever we go somewhere new and there's a lot of people, they feel a bit shy and they feel a bit anxious. So I always kind of reassure them, going, it's okay to feel shy, it's okay to feel nervous, but when you feel okay, we'll go in. And
Mm.
just by giving them that kind of time, guaranteed within a minute, they'll be like, I feel fine now. I feel okay. But just allowing them rather than forcing them seems to make all that difference.
Yeah, and what a wonderful gift to give your children, because I was forced. I'm sure you were forced. I wasn't listened to. I'm not sure you were listened to.
No.
The message that that gives you is that I can't be my authentic self. I can't express myself in my fullness. So I'm going to
Yeah.
hide or do whatever, right? So yeah, time and space for yourself, and your children is going to work wonders because it
Yeah. So I
allows
don't
them,
know. Sorry,
sorry,
carry on.
it allows them to trust themselves. Sorry, it allows them to trust themselves when you do that because they're
Yeah.
validated.
But I also, one of the things that I think is, again, amazing about life coaching is it then in turn gives you the skills to self coach. So whenever you're thinking or feeling, and like, so for me, experiencing some resistance, going, actually, what is this resistance? I can look at it. And the same way that I've been kind of thinking about, the program that I'm launching, or the course that I've just done, or the podcast, going back and going, well, what's happened in the past, and looking for evidence that supports me doing it. Whereas if I go back and look at and go, well, it can't happen, incredible things can happen when you take action. But it's just having that bravery to take it.
Yeah, that was something I always admired about you when we were working together, is that you were always looking for evidence of the opposite theory. And most people are innocently and unconsciously wedded to their story of smallness. So that's
Yeah.
what the unconscious brain's looking for evidence for, to stay small, rather than the amount of women that I meet who have dreams and
Yeah.
longings and passions, and they don't feel able to take the next step. And I'm like, yeah, I quit my well-paid job and became self-employed. Yeah, I've done that. So blah blah. And then I'm like, no, I've sold everything to create a new life. Like, I've done that. So
Yeah.
everything that they throw at me, I'm like, yeah, I've done that. So you can, if you get out of your own way, because anything is possible. But we're dealing with nervous system stuff, we're dealing with unconscious conditioning, and we're dealing with fear.
Yeah. But I think the problem that most people do is they look at the end picture. So they look at the mountain rather than just going, actually, if you were just to take one step in front of another, a small little action, it
Mm.
would soon snowball. And
Yeah.
actually, you would conquer that mountain. But it's just that first step, because that first step leads to the second and then the third. And then it doesn't seem so scary.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. It's like I always had that vision in my mind, after my dad died. Like, I think it was it Martin Luther King who said, "You just need to take the first step. You don't have to see the whole staircase."
Yeah.
I don't know if it was him or not, but most of us want to know what's coming at the end, or we have expectations of the end, or well, if I don't know and can't guarantee that it's going to look like this, then I'm not going to do it. But life doesn't work like that.
So, so wrapping up, what advice would you give a woman who is feeling a bit lost and a bit stuck, has a dream, but doesn't know where to start?
Well, I would say either, work with you, start to find space for yourself, amidst the sort of chaos and drama of your mind, to even get a hold of what that dream might be and admit it to yourself. Stop hiding
Yeah.
it away and stop living in the shadows, because there's so much out there to be hopeful about, and you have just as much about you to shine your light as anyone. There's no difference between you and me and them.
Yeah.
Me and you just happen to take the next step and follow a nudge. But if you've got a longing, that's a window,
Yeah.
just go through it, follow it, see what happens. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't go as planned, because there is no failure.
Yeah. And so wrapping up, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you. Where can people find you on social?
My website and my Instagram and my YouTube is I am Charli Wall. I have a
Yeah.
podcast called Courage Dear Heart. I'm also on TikTok.
Taking after your son.
Well, he inspired me because I hadn't even been on TikTok before, so I quite like that platform. But again, it's Charli Wall, or I am Charli Wall, but Charlie's spelt with just an I, not an E. But probably the easiest place is my website, I am Charli Wall, and from there you can pretty much find all my socials.
Okay. Well, brilliant. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to me. It's been
Thank you for
amazing.
asking me, Amanda. It's an honour, and I always watch with pride and love, and yeah, I'm just so proud to be known, to know you.
But this is, I think, the key thing that I'm learning. If more women empowered women, the world would be a much better place.
Well, it would be different for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Thank you, Charlie.